Chapter 1: The Dreamer's Exchange. The sky was a canvas of violet and navy as Tessa stood at the edge of the city, staring out over the expanse of glittering lights that stretched beyond the horizon. It was a view she had come to love, a view she knew all too well, yet tonight, something felt different. Tonight, it felt like a door was opening. For the past few weeks, Tessa had been experiencing strange dreams. They were vivid, colorful, and altogether too real. She would find herself in a place that seemed to be both foreign and familiar at once, like a world she had only ever seen in passing, like a place from the edge of her memory. But every time she awoke, she would be left with nothing but a fleeting sense of déjà vu. The dreams always started the same way. She would be standing in a bustling street, the kind of street that felt like it belonged in a painting. There would be the hum of voices, the scent of street food in the air, the rush of people moving past her as if in a dance she could never quite join. And through it all, she would feel a pull, a deep, magnetic force that tugged at her chest, urging her forward. In these dreams, there was always someone else. A stranger, whose face she could never quite remember, but whose presence was undeniable. Someone who moved with her through the labyrinth of unfamiliar streets, someone who whispered her name as if they knew her in ways she couldn't yet understand. Tonight, as Tessa stood by her bedroom window, looking at the distant skyline, she felt a strange sense of anticipation. The dreams had become more frequent, more intense, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change, something big. Another one of those dreams tonight? Her roommate, Claire, poked her head through the door, her expression half amused, half curious. Tessa glanced over her shoulder. Claire, with her messy hair and perpetually sleepy eyes, had been her closest friend since they met at the university. Claire was always the skeptic, always the one to roll her eyes at Tessa's supernatural theories. "Yeah," Tessa replied, her voice barely above a whisper. But this time, it was different. It felt more real, like I was there, really there. Claire raised an eyebrow, crossing her arms. "And who was it this time? Your mysterious dream guy?" Tessa frowned. "I don't know. It's like I can almost remember him, but I can't. It's frustrating." "You need to lay off those late-night documentaries," Claire teased, but Tessa wasn't in the mood for jokes. Tessa turned back to the window, her gaze drifting to the distant city lights. She had always been drawn to the stars, as if they were calling her. But tonight, something in the air felt charged, like the universe was on the edge of a revelation, ready to pull her into something bigger than she could imagine. In that moment, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Tessa picked it up and saw an alert flashing on her screen, message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat. She didn't recognize the number, but the message was short, just a single line. "I'm the one from your dreams. Meet me tonight." Her fingers trembled as she stared at the screen, her mind racing. She had never shared anything about her dreams with anyone, not even Claire. How could this person know? The message felt like a punch to the gut, a rush of adrenaline that sent a chill down her spine. There was no way this could be a coincidence. Whoever this was, they knew something that connected her to those strange, vivid dreams. The time on her phone blinked, 11:57 p.m. She had 3 minutes. Tessa's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't know what this meant or who this person was, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't let this moment pass by. Without thinking, she grabbed her coat and bolted out the door. Chapter 2: The Meeting. Tessa's feet hit the pavement hard as she ran down the stairs of her apartment building. Her breath came in shallow bursts, and she could feel the excitement in her chest tightening with each step. She had no idea where she was going or how she was going to find the person who had sent the message. But that sense of inevitability, that strange pull she had felt for weeks, was all-consuming now. She couldn't ignore it. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, Tessa stopped for a moment to catch her breath. The city was still alive around her, the streets bustling with late-night activity, but it all seemed distant now, like the background noise of a movie. Everything felt too quiet, as if the world was holding its breath. The streetlights flickered above, casting long, dramatic shadows. She looked at the message again, wondering who could be behind it, and why she felt so drawn to answer. The text had come from an unknown number. But something inside her told her it wasn't just a random prank. The way the words had hit her, "I'm the one from your dreams. Meet me tonight," felt like a sign. Her mind raced. Was it possible that someone else was experiencing the same dreams? Was it possible they were connected somehow? Could it all be real? The thought gave her chills, but she pushed it aside. She wasn't going to let fear stop her now. With a determined look, Tessa turned left, heading toward the park a few blocks away. The message had included a location: "Meet me by the old fountain in the park." It was an odd choice. The park had always felt a little eerie to her at night. The fountain was old, worn down, and rarely visited. Still, something about it felt fitting, like it was the place where everything would finally make sense. Tessa arrived at the park in record time. The streets had become quieter, and she could feel the weight of the silence as she made her way through the darkened trees. The usual hum of the city was absent here, replaced by the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. The fountain was in the center of the park, covered in ivy and surrounded by moss. Its stone surface was cracked, and the water was stagnant, but it had an undeniable charm, an ancient energy that called to her. Tessa stepped closer, glancing around cautiously. Her footsteps echoed in the emptiness. She was alone. Her phone buzzed again, breaking the stillness. She checked the screen. Another message. "I'm already here." Her pulse quickened. Who was this person? And where were they hiding? "Hello?" Tessa called out, her voice trembling slightly. I'm here." She waited, her heart beating so loudly she was sure it was echoing off the stone fountain. The night seemed to stretch on forever, the only sound the rustling of the trees. It was as if the park was holding its breath, too. And then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was a man tall, with dark hair and a mysterious aura that made him seem almost otherworldly. He stepped forward slowly, his face partially obscured by the low light. But there was something familiar about him, something that made Tessa's heart skip a beat. "Tessa," the man said, his voice smooth but tense. "You came." Tessa's breath caught in her throat. She had known it. She had known this moment would come, even if she couldn't explain how. This man, he was the one from her dreams. But who was he? And how did he know her name? I don't understand," she whispered, taking a step back. "How do you know who I am?" He stepped forward, his eyes locking with hers. There was a depth to them, as if he could see straight into her soul. "It's complicated," he said softly. "But we don't have much time. You're in danger." Tessa blinked in surprise. Danger? Was he serious? Before she could speak, he raised his hand, signaling for her to stay quiet. "Listen. You've been dreaming of me, haven't you? But it's not just me. You're connected to something bigger, something that's been happening for years." Tessa felt a knot form in her stomach. She didn't want to believe him, but something about the way he spoke, the urgency in his voice, it felt real. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. He smiled, though it was a sad, knowing smile. "I'm the person who can help you understand why this is happening. Why you've been having these dreams. But first, we need to leave the city. It's not safe here." Tessa felt her pulse race. She had no idea what he was talking about, but there was an undeniable sense of truth in his words. She didn't know what her dreams had to do with anything, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were part of something larger, something that was unfolding right in front of her. And then, just as she was about to ask another question, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A low rumble filled the air, like the distant sound of thunder. Tessa's eyes widened in shock. The city, her city, was shaking. "What's happening?" she gasped, clutching the edge of the fountain for support. The man grabbed her arm, pulling her close. His grip was firm, but there was no time for comfort. "Get to the car now," he shouted. With the world beginning to unravel around them, Tessa had no choice but to follow. She didn't know where the man was leading her, but she had already made her decision. There was no turning back now. The city, once so familiar, was beginning to feel like an entirely different place. And Tessa was right in the middle of it all. Chapter 3: The Road Ahead. Tessa barely had time to react before the man was pulling her through the dark park, his hand firm around her wrist. She could feel his urgency in the way he moved, in the tense set of his shoulders. Whatever was happening, it was far beyond anything she had ever imagined. She stumbled along behind him, the rumble of the earth beneath them growing louder with every passing second. The streetlights flickered, their once welcoming glow now making the shadows seem darker, more menacing. "What's going on?" she asked, breathless as they reached the edge of the park. "We don't have time for explanations," he said, his voice sharp. "Just keep moving." They emerged onto the main street, the sounds of chaos now starting to infiltrate the quiet. People were shouting in the distance, and a few had begun running in the opposite direction. The air felt thick, like the calm before a storm. Tessa could hear sirens wailing in the distance. The man led her to a sleek, black car parked at the curb. He opened the door, ushering her inside before quickly jumping into the driver's seat. "Where are we going?" Tessa asked, her voice trembling. Her heart was racing, and every instinct in her told her to run, to escape, but the mystery of it all was pulling her forward. She couldn't turn back now. "Somewhere safe," the man replied, his jaw set. "Somewhere you can't be found." Tessa didn't know what to think anymore. Her mind was swirling with questions. Who was this man? What had just happened to the city? And most importantly, what did her dreams have to do with any of this? The car sped down the deserted streets, the city disappearing behind them. Tessa looked out the window, trying to make sense of everything, but the world felt like it was crumbling before her eyes. The once familiar streets seemed alien now, and the feeling of disorientation only grew as they drove farther and farther away from the heart of the city. After what felt like hours, they reached a secluded area, an old, run-down warehouse on the outskirts of town. The car stopped in front of it, the headlights cutting through the darkness like a blade. The man turned to her, his eyes intense. "Stay close. And don't make a sound." Tessa nodded, her breath caught in her throat. She had no idea what to expect, but there was no turning back now. She followed him as they entered the building, the heavy door creaking shut behind them. Inside, the warehouse was dark, save for a few dimly lit lamps scattered around the room. It smelled like old metal and dust, a far cry from the clean, modern city she had just left behind. The man led her to a small corner, where a large, ornate wooden box sat on a table. He reached for it, his fingers tracing the intricate carvings on its surface. "What is this?" Tessa asked, her voice barely a whisper. "This," the man said, "is what you've been dreaming of. It's the key." Tessa stared at the box, her heart pounding. What was inside it? And how did he know about her dreams? He opened it slowly, the hinges groaning as if protesting the intrusion. Inside, there was a small, glowing crystal, pulsing with a strange, otherworldly light. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before, a vibrant mix of colors swirling within the stone. Tessa stepped closer, mesmerized by the crystal's glow. She felt a pull, an urge to reach out and touch it, but something held her back. The crystal, the man explained, is the link between our worlds. And now it's yours. Tessa's breath caught in her throat. The words didn't make sense. Worlds? What did he mean? I don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. What do you mean, it's mine? How can I be connected to this? The man sighed, his eyes dark with regret. You don't remember, do you? That's why I'm here. I was sent to find you. You're one of the dreamers. And this crystal, it's the only thing that can help you unlock your true potential. Tessa stared at him, unable to process what he was saying. Dreamers? True potential? None of this made sense. What are you talking about? She demanded. I'm just a regular person. I don't have any special abilities. The man stepped closer, his gaze softening for the first time. I know this is a lot to take in. But everything you've been dreaming about, it's real. And it's connected to something much larger than you can imagine. The dreams you've been having, they're not just dreams. They're glimpses of another world. A world that's falling apart. And you're the only one who can stop it. Tessa felt a chill run down her spine. Another world? A world falling apart? Suddenly, the ground trembled again, more violently this time. The lights flickered overhead as the man grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. We need to leave, he said urgently. Now. The crystal pulsed again in the box, its light growing stronger. Tessa felt an electric jolt course through her body as if it was calling to her, drawing her toward it. Before she could protest, the man pushed her into the car again. This time, his urgency was even more intense. What's happening? Tessa asked, trying to make sense of it all. Why is everything shaking? Why is the city falling apart? The man's face darkened. The collapse is coming. And if we don't stop it, everything will be lost. You need to remember who you are. Tessa could barely keep up. Who she was? What did he mean by that? Her head was spinning, her thoughts a tangled mess of confusion and fear. As the car raced through the night, the world outside seemed to be unraveling. But Tessa could feel it now, the pull of something greater, something beyond her understanding. And with it came a terrifying realization: she was a part of something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. Chapter 4: The Awakening. The car sped through the night, the headlights cutting through the darkness, but Tessa couldn't focus on the road ahead. Her mind was still reeling from everything the man had told her. Dreamers. Another world. A crystal that could change everything. None of it made sense, yet it felt undeniable. Her hands gripped the seat, her pulse racing as the man beside her remained focused on the road, his jaw clenched. Every now and then, he would glance at her, but there were no words between them. The tension was thick, heavy with unspoken knowledge and fear. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the man broke the silence. We're going to a safe house, he said. It's not far now. Tessa didn't ask where. She didn't care. She was too busy trying to piece together what was happening to her life, to herself. I don't understand, she whispered, almost to herself. What am I supposed to do with this crystal? Why me? The man glanced at her again, his expression a mix of caution and sympathy. Because you're the last one. You're the final dreamer. The others have already awoken, but you've been hidden, kept from the truth. I was sent to find you, to bring you into the fold. Tessa's mind raced. The last one? I'm special, then? No, he said, shaking his head. Not special. Chosen. This isn't about destiny, or fate, or some heroic calling. This is about survival. About saving our world and theirs. Tessa's head spun. The world and theirs? He was talking about another world. A world that she was somehow connected to. A world that was now falling apart. Who's them? She asked, her voice barely audible. People like me, he answered quietly. People from the other side. Dreamers, too. They've been coming through the cracks in the fabric of our reality. And some of them aren't here to help. Tessa's stomach dropped. Wait. Are you saying there are other people, like me? People who have the same dreams? He nodded. Yes. But not all of them are on your side. The collapse isn't just a natural disaster. It's a war, one that's been brewing for centuries. And we're the only ones who can stop it. Tessa felt a cold shiver run down her spine. A war? A war between worlds? She could barely even wrap her head around the concept. What's this war about? She asked, desperate for clarity. What's at stake? He didn't answer right away. His gaze was fixed on the road ahead, but Tessa could see the tension in his shoulders, the burden he carried. Everything. The collapse is a result of the divide between worlds. The barrier between our reality and theirs is weakening. If it breaks completely, they'll invade. And if they do, our world as we know it will cease to exist. This is our last chance to prevent it. The weight of his words hit her like a ton of bricks. She was caught in the middle of something colossal, something she never could have imagined. And the crystal, the glowing stone she still couldn't quite comprehend, was the key. The car slowed to a stop, and the man quickly turned the engine off. We're here. Tessa barely had time to process what he said before he opened the door and ushered her out. They were in front of an old building, hidden in the shadows of trees. The structure was nondescript, weathered with age, but there was something about it that felt secure, like it was meant to keep something hidden. As they entered, the door creaked behind them, shutting with a low thud that echoed through the empty hallway. The inside of the building was stark, the walls lined with old, dust-covered furniture. It looked like a safe house, a place where people could disappear. The man led her through a narrow corridor, stopping in front of a large wooden door. He knocked twice before entering. Inside was a small, dimly lit room. In the center, a man was sitting at a table, his hands folded, his eyes sharp and calculating. Tessa could feel the weight of his gaze even before he spoke. I see you've brought her, the man said, his voice smooth but commanding. The man beside Tessa nodded, his posture tense. We don't have much time. The man at the table didn't move, but his eyes never left Tessa. You're the last dreamer, he said, his voice soft yet firm. You've awakened. Tessa felt a chill spread through her. What does that mean? What happens now? The man stood up slowly, walking over to her with deliberate steps. He was older than the man who had brought her here, but there was something timeless about his presence, something that made him feel like he belonged in this world and the next. It means you are no longer just a dreamer, he said, his voice low and grave. You are the key to saving both worlds. But to unlock your potential, you must first understand the truth about what's happening. And that truth is hidden within you. Tessa stared at him, confused. Hidden within me? What do you mean? The older man turned and walked to a nearby desk, pulling out an old, worn journal. He handed it to her, his expression unreadable. This is your guide, he said. It holds the answers you need. But be warned, reading it will reveal truths that might be too much for you to bear. You may wish you never learned them. Tessa hesitated, but something inside her urged her to take the journal. She had come too far to turn back now. As she opened the journal, the pages seemed to glow with an inner light. The text was written in a language she didn't understand, but as her fingers traced the words, they began to shift, changing before her eyes into something familiar. It was her name. And then, the truth started to unfold. Chapter 5: The Truth Revealed. Tessa's fingers hovered over the pages of the journal, her heart racing as the words seemed to twist and bend beneath her touch. The language, once foreign and impossible to comprehend, now seemed to rearrange themselves, becoming clearer with every passing second. Her name, Tessa. Written in bold, ancient script, glowing softly under her fingertips. It was as if the journal was alive, responding to her presence. As she turned the page, the words transformed again. This time, it wasn't just her name. It was a story of a young girl who had always felt different, as if something inside her was waiting to awaken. The words described her dreams, her restlessness, her sense that she didn't belong. But it also spoke of her purpose. A purpose she had never known she had. Tessa felt her breath catch in her throat as she read the lines, each word sinking deeper into her soul. The dreamer is not just a visitor in the world of dreams. She is the bridge. The one who can heal the rift between the worlds, or destroy them both. The crystal is her guide, but only when she fully understands the depth of her connection. The collapse is the result of the fracture in the dream world, the world of dreams that bleeds into the waking world. The key to closing the fracture lies within the dreamer, within her heart. Her mind reeled. She was the key? She was the bridge between two worlds? How could it be possible? And if this fracture could destroy both worlds, what choice did she have? Her hands shook as she turned to the next page, where a diagram appeared, a diagram of the worlds, side by side. One was bright and full of life, while the other was dark, with cracks forming in its surface. The diagram seemed to pulse, like it was alive, like the worlds themselves were fighting for survival. She could feel it then, the weight of her responsibility, the burden she had been unknowingly carrying. "This is it," the older man said softly, stepping closer. "This is your legacy, Tessa. The world you know is at risk, but so is the world of dreams. If the barrier continues to weaken, both will be consumed. But collapse is already in motion. And you, with the crystal, are the only one who can stop it." Tessa swallowed hard. How? How can I stop it? I don't even understand what's happening. You must go to the heart of the fracture, the man explained. There, you will find the source, the place where the worlds are merging. Only with the crystal can you restore the balance. But it's not as simple as just placing it somewhere. You have to face the dream itself, the force that has been tearing the worlds apart. Tessa's mind spun. The dream itself? Was there some kind of creature or force at the center of it all? And why her? She was just an ordinary girl. The man seemed to sense her doubt. You are not ordinary, Tessa. Your dreams have always been a connection. You were chosen because of your ability to bridge the gap between the two realms. The crystal allows you to tap into that power. Tessa looked down at the glowing stone in her hand, feeling its warmth seep into her palm. It was so small, so unassuming, but it was the key to everything. Her eyes met the man's. Where do I go? He nodded. I will take you there. But once you enter the fracture, you will not be the same. The worlds will test you, push you to your limits. Are you ready for what lies ahead? Tessa's heart pounded. I don't know if I'm ready, but I don't have a choice, do I? No, the man replied quietly. You don't. Chapter 6: The Final Choice. The journey to the heart of the fracture was long and arduous. They drove through desolate streets, the air growing thicker with each passing mile. Tessa could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the sense that they were heading towards something far more dangerous than she could understand. The world around her seemed to blur, as if time itself was bending, warping. When they finally arrived, they stood at the edge of a vast, empty wasteland. The landscape was torn apart, as if the earth had been ripped open. In the distance, Tessa could see a glowing light almost like a crack in the sky, where the two worlds collided. The rift. The man turned to her, his eyes filled with both fear and determination. This is it. Once you step into the rift, there will be no turning back. You must act quickly, or both worlds will be lost. Tessa looked at him, then at the glowing crystal in her hand. The weight of the moment pressed down on her chest. She was terrified. She didn't know what awaited her inside the rift, but she knew that if she failed, everything she had ever known would be gone. "Are you coming with me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man shook his head. "This is something you must do alone. You have the strength to stop it. I believe in you." Tessa took a deep breath, steeling herself. She had no choice. She had to stop the collapse. She stepped forward, feeling the ground tremble beneath her feet. The rift loomed before her, its light blinding. As she entered the rift, everything around her twisted. The world of dreams bled into the real world. She was caught between two realities, the lines between them blurred and shifting. The pull of the rift was overwhelming, dragging her deeper into its heart. And there, at the center, she saw it, the force that had been tearing the worlds apart. It wasn't a creature or a monster, but a shadow, an embodiment of chaos, of imbalance. It was the source of the rift. The source of the collapse. Tessa raised the crystal, feeling its warmth pulse in her hand. The shadow turned toward her, its eyes filled with darkness. "You cannot stop me," it hissed. "I can," Tessa said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I am the bridge. I am the one who can fix this." With one final surge of energy, she plunged the crystal into the heart of the rift. There was a blinding flash of light. The ground shook violently, and for a moment, Tessa thought she might be torn apart. But then, the light faded. The rift was gone. The worlds, for now, were safe. Tessa fell to her knees, exhausted and trembling. But as she looked around, she realized something. The world, her world, was still intact. It hadn't been consumed. She had done it. She had saved them both. And in that moment, she understood. She wasn't just a dreamer. She was the protector, the one who could bridge the gap between worlds. Epilogue, a new beginning. The world was quiet now. The rift was gone, and the collapse had been averted. Tessa stood at the edge of the city, watching the sunrise. The light seemed brighter, the air clearer. It was as if the entire world had been given a second chance. The man who had helped her, who had guided her, was gone, but Tessa felt his presence within her. She had completed her mission, but the journey didn't end here. There were still many unknowns, many mysteries to uncover. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing: she would face it, not as a dreamer, but as the bridge between two worlds. And whatever challenges came next, she would be ready. The end.